if you really think about it, at 2.0 p.m., a walk is basically just transportation.
Right. Purely functional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you take that exact same activity at 2.0 a.m., and it is, well, it's basically therapy.
It really is. The physical act of putting one foot in front of the other doesn't change at all.
Not one bit.
But the psychological processing happening in your brain undergoes this massive systemic shift.
Yeah, and I want you, listening right now, to picture this. Think about what happens when you step out your front door late at night.
Mm-hmm.
You've been inside, right? The screens are glowing, you've got artificial heat pumping, there's that lingering static of all the day's demands.
Just all that built-up noise.
Right. And then you open the door and you step into the dark. And within like 3 paces, the atmosphere fundamentally alters your internal state.
It's an immediate physical reaction.
It is. We're looking at a physical activity that completely sheds its daytime utility.
Yeah, it ceases entirely to be about getting from point A to point B.
Yeah.
What you're describing is actually a forced neurobiological pivot.
A forced pivot. I like that phrasing.
Because the environment itself is acting as a psychological catalyst. It's rewiring how your brain is managing sensory input and emotional data in real time.
And that specific pivot is the entire focus of our deep dive today.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is. So we are pulling today's insights from an incredibly specific set of excerpts. The text is called Solitude Under Streetlights: The Psychology of Night Walks.
That's a great title.
Right. And specifically, we're going to dissect the 5th topic covered in this material, which isolates the unique emotional weight of late-night walks.
Which is something I think almost everyone has experienced, even if they couldn't name why it felt so different.
Exactly. So our mission here is to figure out the exact mechanisms at play. Like, why does ambient darkness combined with steady locomotion somehow completely bypass our psychological defense mechanisms?
It's almost like a backdoor into the subconscious.
It is. And the source text lays out this phenomenon beautifully, but we need to look at the actual neurological gears turning behind it.
Well, the source actually begins by establishing a really clear baseline contrast.
Okay, lay it out for us.
It states that walking at night feels inherently different from the daytime because, and I'm quoting directly here, everything feels slower and quieter.
Slower and quieter, which sounds incredibly poetic.
It does, but to really understand that, we actually have to strip away the poetry for a second and look at human biology.
Okay, let's get into the biology.
So during the day, your visual cortex is essentially operating at maximum capacity.
Because there's just so much to look at.
Exactly. It is rapidly processing, literally millions of data points.
Like what?
Think about it. The speed of approaching vehicles, the micro expressions on the faces of pedestrians walking past you.
Oh, right. You're constantly scanning people.
You have to. Plus changing traffic lights, the glare of the sun, advertisements.
It's overwhelming when you actually list it all out.
It is an immense amount of metabolic energy being spent. And all of that processing keeps your brain heavily anchored in beta wave frequencies.
Beta waves, that's the alert state, right?
Yeah, right. It's the state of alert, active problem solving. It's hypervigilance.
Which means your internal metronome is basically mashing that external frenzy.
Exactly.
Like if you're navigating a crowded sidewalk at noon in a busy city, your nervous system has to be in this mild state of fight or flight just to keep you from, bumping into a stranger or stepping into traffic.
The daytime environment is inherently threatening from a sensory processing standpoint.
That's a wild way to think about a afternoon stroll.
But it's true. But then when the sun goes down, that entire threat matrix just disappears.
The literal reduction in moving objects.
Fewer cars, fewer people, and the aggressive daytime lighting is gone. It creates an environment where your brain just no longer has to play defense.
And I'm guessing this is where the perception of time changes.
You hit the nail on the head. Because you are processing significantly fewer events per second, your brain essentially creates the illusion that time itself has decelerated.
Oh, wow. So it's basically a bandwidth issue.
That's a perfect way to put it.
I always think of it like reading. Daytime walking is like trying to read a frantically crowded textbook where every margin is filled with notes and highlights.
It's chaotic.
Right. But nighttime walking is like reading a poem. There's just so much blank space on the page. You naturally slow down to read it.
That is a great analogy.
But let me push back on this a little bit.
Yeah.
I have to wonder, is the world actually feeling slower at night? Or does the sudden lack of data input just force our internal pace to decelerate?
Like, are we sinking to the environment?
Yeah. We aren't just observing a slower world, we are physically syncing to it, right?
It is entirely a synchronization process, and it's actually driven by how our eyes evolved to function in low light.
Wait, really? Our eyes change the pace of our thoughts.
Yes, when you shift from daylight to darkness, you naturally stop relying on foveal vision.
Ovial vision.
Yeah, that's the sharp central focus we use for, like, reading text or identifying faces.
Okay, the high-definition focus.
Exactly. And that specific type of vision is deeply tied to the sympathetic nervous system and our stress responses.
Because you're intensely zeroing in on things.
Right. But in the dark, you are physically forced to rely more on your peripheral vision, utilizing the rod cells in the edges of your eyes.
So you can't see the details anyway.
Exactly. And here's the magic part. Engaging your peripheral vision naturally stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, which is the rest and digest system.
Yes, it is a literal biological off switch for stress. Your breathing slows down, your heart rate drops, and your body physically relaxes just because of how you're looking at the dark.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
So the quietness mentioned in the source text isn't just an acoustic measurement. It's not just that the decibels drop in your neighborhood.
No, it's a profound physiological quiet.
And the source text actually explicitly links this to its next major claim. It says that the psychology of this phenomenon is rooted in the fact that, quote, nighttime reduces distractions, which allows people to notice their feelings more clearly.
Right, it's drawing a very direct causal line there.
It really is. It's basically saying reduced visual input equals increased emotional awareness.
And neurologically speaking, that causal line goes straight through a specific neural network in the brain called the default mode network.
The DMN.
The DMN, exactly. When your brain is intensely focused on an external task.
Like not getting hit by a cyclist on your walk to work.
Right. When you're doing that, the DMN is suppressed. You are in what we call a task-positive mode.
You're just reacting to the outside world.
But the very moment those external distractions are removed, like when you step onto a dark, empty street, the DMN powers right up.
It fills the void.
It does. And this specific network is the one responsible for self-referential thought, autobiographical memory, and deep emotional processing.
So the background programs finally have the RAM to run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you aren't spending 90% of your energy just surviving the immediate physical environment, the DMN takes over and starts sorting through your internal environment.
That makes total sense. But I want to challenge this timeline a bit.
Go for it.
Because I really want you, the listener, to think about your own daily habits for a second. We live in an era where we are honestly terrified of our default mode network.
Oh, absolutely. We do everything we can to suppress it.
We do. We plug in a podcast, we check our emails while waiting in line for coffee, we doom scroll the literal second we feel a hint of boredom.
We use external noise to completely drown out internal discomfort.
Right. So if we are that addicted to constant distraction, does stepping into the sensory void of a night walk actually feel peaceful right away?
That's a very fair question.
Because I'd assume that a sudden lack of distraction would actually trigger, like, panic or withdrawal before it ever starts to feel peaceful.
You're not wrong. It often does feel jarring at first, and it's actually a measurable neurochemical withdrawal.
Really? Withdrawal from what?
Dopamine. Your brain is accustomed to a steady, rapid-fire drip of dopamine from constant stimuli.
Right, the phone notifications,
Yeah.
the fast-paced videos.
Exactly. So when you step into the dark and all that stimulation abruptly stops, there is a transitional friction.
Transitional friction, like your brain is slamming on the brakes.
Yes. For the first few blocks of your walk, your mind might race. It's frantically searching the environment for something to latch onto. The silence can actually feel really heavy and uncomfortable.
So how do we get to the peaceful part?
You just have to keep walking. If you keep moving, the physical rhythm of your movement begins to override that chemical withdrawal.
The rhythm sort of smooths it out.
It does. The friction burns off and the DMN fully engages. And that is the exact threshold where the walk transitions from being jarring to being profoundly peaceful.
Which leads directly into the specific emotional states the source text talks about.
It's highly specific about those states, too.
It is. The text says people enjoy this experience because they often feel, and here are the 4 words it uses, thoughtful, reflective, calm, and emotional.
It's an interesting mix of words.
It really is, because pairing calm and emotional seems almost paradoxical at first glance.
It does seem counterintuitive.
Because we usually associate high emotion with high physical arousal, right? Like crying or shouting or having a really elevated heart rate.
Yeah, a spike in cortisol.
But the text is pointing to this very specific condition where you can process these heavy, overwhelming feelings while maintaining complete physical tranquility. How does that work?
This is where the physical act of walking becomes absolutely crucial.
Because of the rhythm.
Yes. When you're walking, you are engaging in bilateral stimulation.
Bilateral stimulation. Breaking that down, it means.
It means you are rhythmically activating the left and right hemispheres of your brain with every alternating footstep. Left, right, left, right.
Oh, wow.
It's actually the exact same mechanism utilized in EMDR therapy, which psychologists use to help patients process severe trauma.
Wait, really? Just walking does that?
Yes. The rhythmic, alternating movement occupies your working memory just enough to prevent you from being completely overwhelmed by the emotion you're processing.
That is fascinating. So the walking keeps the body grounded while the mind goes digging.
Exactly. It acts as a neurological anchor.
An anchor.
Yeah, the bilateral stimulation facilitates cross-hemispheric communication in the brain. It allows you to take highly charged emotional memories and process them safely.
Because the body feels safe.
Right. Your autonomic nervous system is kept in that relaxed parasympathetic state by the darkness and the peripheral vision.
Like we talked about earlier.
Exactly. While at the same time, your DMN is surfacing all this heavy emotional data.
So that is exactly how you can feel deeply, intensely emotional about, say, a loss or a bad breakup or a failure at work while remaining entirely physically calm.
You're processing it without physically reliving the stress of it.
That neurological anchor perfectly explains what the text means by the word reflective, too.
How so?
Because being reflective during a night walk isn't just like idle daydreaming. It's the active mechanical integration of your daily experiences.
That's a great distinction.
Right. During the day, you're just collecting raw data. You get a harsh comment from your boss, or you feel a lingering anxiety about a bill you have to pay, or even just a fleeting moment of joy.
But you don't have time to process any of it.
Exactly. You don't have the cognitive bandwidth to sort it. So the reflective state of the night walk is that bilateral processing, finally filing those daily experiences into long-term understanding.
You are literally digesting your own life.
Digesting your life. I love that. It's like, okay, think of a glass of really muddy water.
Okay.
During the day, the glass is constantly being shaken up. The dirt is swirling everywhere. You can't see through it.
It's just cloudy chaos.
Right. But the calmness of the night walk is like setting that glass down on a sturdy table. The stillness allows all the dirt, the day's chaos, to slowly settle at the bottom. And suddenly the water, which represents your feelings, is totally clear and visible.
That's a beautiful analogy. And what's great is that the source text actually grounds all this abstract psychology into a highly specific physical scenario.
Oh, the walking home scenario.
Yes. To illustrate these emotions, the text offers this real-life example. It says, someone walks home under streetlights after meeting friends. Cool air touches their face while music plays softly in their headphones.
That scenario is so vivid. And I feel like it is surgically constructed to trigger the exact processing state we've been talking about. Let's break down the phases of that example.
Let's do it.
First, the source specifically sets this up as happening after meeting friends. It doesn't say, after sitting alone in a quiet room all day.
Yeah.
That contrast has to be intentional.
It absolutely is. It's the contrast of the social drop-off.
The social drop-off.
Yeah. Think about when you're hanging out with friends. Your mirror neurons are firing constantly. You are reading social cues. You are performing a version of yourself, making jokes.
You're on.
You are very on. Your brain is entirely outwardly focused on social survival and connection. But then you say goodbye, and the door closes behind you.
And it's just quiet.
Instantly quiet. That intense social demand drops to zero in a split second. And that sudden vacuum is what pulls your internal reflections to the surface so forcefully.
Because the brain still has all that momentum.
Yes, your brain is still highly active from all the socializing, but suddenly it has absolutely no external target. So all that energy immediately turns inward to analyze the interactions that just happened.
Like playing back conversations in your head. Did I sound stupid when I said that? Or it was so good to see them?
Exactly. And just as you start to get lost in that internal analysis, the source introduces phase 2 of the scenario.
The tactile grounding. The cool air touching the face. The text really leans heavily on the specific environment of the night air.
And there's a clinical reason for that. When the default mode network is highly active, there is always a slight risk of rumination.
Rumination. like getting stuck in a negative thought loop.
Right, or even complete dissociation, where you get so trapped in your own thoughts that you totally disconnect from physical reality.
I've definitely done that.
We all have. But the physical sensation of the cool air against the skin naturally activates your somatosensory cortex.
It pulls you back to your body.
Exactly. It serves as a constant, subtle reminder of the physical boundary of your body. It keeps you tethered to the present moment, ensuring the walk remains a grounding experience rather than a dissociative spiral.
That makes perfect sense.
Oh.
Which brings us to the third element of the text's scenario. Music plays softly in their headphones.
Ah, the music.
Now, wait a minute. I have a major bone to pick with this part of the text.
I thought you might.
Because the core thesis of this entire source text is that the magic of the night walk comes from, quote, reduced distractions.
That's right.
That's supposed to be the catalyst for this whole psychological shift.
Yeah.
And then immediately it recommends pumping a produced artificial soundtrack directly into your ear canals.
It does seem like a contradiction.
It's a glaring contradiction.
Yeah.
How is injecting external auditory stimuli not immediately destroying that delicate cognitive vacuum we just spent half an hour building?
I completely understand the pushback. It absolutely appears contradictory until you look at how the auditory cortex processes unpredictable noise versus rhythmic predictability.
Okay, explain that. Unpredictable versus predictable.
If you are walking in pure silence in a city or a suburb, your brain is still subconsciously scanning the environment for threats,
Even at night.
especially at night. So a sudden dog bark, a car backfiring a block away, or a sudden siren, any of those will instantly spike your cortisol.
And that yanks you right out of the default mode network.
Instantly. It throws you right back into a beta wave fight or flight state. Silence in an unpredictable environment actually requires a lot of vigilance.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going with this. So the music isn't a distraction. It's an auditory shield.
That is exactly what it is. It is controlled sensory input. By playing familiar, soft music, you are providing your auditory cortex with predictable, harmonic structures.
You're giving it something safe to chew on.
Right. You are effectively masking the unpredictable acoustic threats of the outside environment. Furthermore, music is deeply tied to the amygdala and the hippocampus.
The emotion and memory centers.
Yes. So when you choose the right music stuff that isn't too aggressive or complex, it doesn't demand problem-solving bandwidth. Instead, it acts as an emotional facilitator.
It provides a rhythm.
It provides rhythmic and emotional scaffolding. It actually helps your brain organize the thoughts that are surfacing from your subconscious.
You are essentially scoring your own internal cinema.
I love that phrase.
It's true. The music regulates the dopamine flow. It keeps you in the optimal state for processing, all while blocking out the random chaos of the street. It is a highly curated, engineered environment for introspection.
It really is engineered perfectly.
And it's this carefully curated environment that sets the stage for the final insights of the text, which is where things take a really interesting turn.
The shift to conversation.
Yes. The text shifts from internal mechanics to actual interpersonal dynamics. It highlights people's favorite night walks, and memorable conversations during walks.
The shift to the interpersonal is fascinating because the literal physics of a night walk fundamentally alter how humans communicate with each other.
It's totally different than talking during the day.
Consider the physiological difference between having a deep, vulnerable conversation sitting face-to-face across a brightly lit cafe table versus having that same conversation walking side by side in the dark.
It's night and day, literally. Because face-to-face interaction is inherently confrontational in primates, right?
It is.
If we are sitting across from each other in the bright light, my amygdala is constantly scanning your face for micro-expressions.
Yeah.
I'm looking for judgment, or boredom, or disagreement.
And you're hyper-aware of your own face, too.
Exactly. I'm performing. The social pressure is immense. My defensive walls are up because I feel entirely exposed.
Precisely. But when you're walking side by side in the dark, all of that pressure just evaporates.
Because you aren't looking at each other.
Right. You are both facing forward, looking out into the shared darkness. The lack of direct eye contact removes the amygdala activation.
The threat detector turns off.
Exactly. Plus, you are aligned physically, moving in the exact same direction. That naturally synchronizes your gait. You step in time with each other.
And physical synchronization leads to mental synchronization.
Consequentially, yes, it naturally fosters deep empathy. And the darkness provides this beautiful anonymity. You can cast your words forward into the night rather than feeling like you're throwing them directly at the other person's face.
If the darkness acts as a visual buffer, then it makes total sense why, hostage negotiators or trauma therapists often alter room lighting or seating arrangements to lower a person's defenses.
They absolutely use those techniques.
And the night walk just lowers those exact same defenses naturally, without any effort. Which really brings us to the text's ultimate, most poignant conclusion.
The conversation with ourselves.
Right. It states that solo night walks, quote, sometimes feel like conversations with ourselves.
And if we take the exact same interpersonal mechanics we just discussed, the lower defenses, the lack of intense visual focus, the physical synchronization, and we apply them intrapersonally.
To ourselves.
Yes. The metaphor is scientifically sound. Think about it. During the day, your conscious executive functioning mind is basically a dictator.
A dictator. That's harsh, but accurate.
It is. It's constantly shouting orders, managing schedules, suppressing anxieties, telling you to focus on work.
But at night, that dictator is finally lulled to sleep.
Yes. Lulled by the rhythm of the walking and by the reduction in sensory threats. The executive function finally relaxes its grip. The gatekeeper steps aside.
And your subconscious, which is holding all those unresolved feelings, the subtle anxieties, the desires you haven't articulated yet, it finally feels safe enough to speak up.
Exactly. And the bilateral stimulation of the walk creates a literal crosstalk between the left and right hemispheres of your brain.
So you are, neurologically speaking, actually having a dialogue.
You are. You pose a thought, you take a few steps, you let that thought echo in the quiet, and your deeper associative memory responds to it.
That is profound. And I want to turn this directly over to you, listening to this deep dive right now.
It's a great time for some self-reflection.
The source material asks these questions implicitly, and I think they are really worth answering for yourself. Do you actually enjoy walking at night?
And if you don't, why not?
Right. And when you do take a night walk, what is the true nature of the conversation you're having with yourself? Are you actively trying to solve a specific problem? Or are you just letting that bilateral rhythm of your footsteps settle the psychological debris of the day?
Just letting the dirt settle in the glass.
Exactly. Waiting until you can see your own baseline emotions clearly. Treat this deep dive as a prompt. The next time you feel that overwhelming buzzing anxiety at, say, 9:00 p.m.
Recognize that it is a bandwidth issue.
Yes. Don't drown it in another screen. Don't open another app. Just step outside.
Let the physical environment force that neurobiological pivot. Let your peripheral vision trigger your parasympathetic nervous system.
Let the darkness close the excess browser tabs in your mind.
Beautifully said.
So to quickly summarize our journey through the source text today, we explored how the simple transition from daytime utility to nighttime deceleration is actually a profound neurological event.
We saw how drastically reducing the visual processing load frees up the cognitive bandwidth necessary for the default mode network to engage.
And we examined how the rhythmic bilateral stimulation of walking allows us to process high arousal emotions while remaining in a calm parasympathetic state.
We also broke down the mechanics of the perfect walk scenario.
Right, the catalyst of the social contrast, the physical grounding of the cool air, and the use of music as an auditory shield.
Rather than a distraction.
Exactly. And finally, we unpacked how the side-by-side geometry of a walk lowers our psychological defenses, enabling deeply vulnerable conversations with others.
And ultimately with ourselves.
It's a lot to process, but it's incredibly validating.
It really is. And
Right.
the source text leaves us with that beautiful concept of the walk as a conversation with the self. And I want to leave the listener with one final thought to ponder that builds on that conclusion.
Please do.
If a night walk truly is a dialogue with our own minds, consider how the physical environment perfectly maps onto our psychological architecture.
What do you mean?
Well, picture the physical layout of a street at night. You have these bright, distinct pools of illumination directly underneath the streetlights, right?
Right.
When you walk through that light, everything is visible, clear, and known. That pool of light represents your conscious mind.
The thoughts you've already categorized.
Exactly. The emotions you can easily name and understand.
But the light doesn't reach everywhere.
It doesn't. Inevitably, if you want to keep moving forward, you have to step out of that clear, illuminated pool and walk into the long, dark, shadowy space before the next streetlight.
Oh.
That dark stretch represents your subconscious. It is the ambiguous space where your unresolved feelings, your undefined anxieties, and your half-formed ideas live.
So the walk itself is the movement between the two.
The walk is the natural, necessary drift between the two states. You walk through what you clearly understand into the shadows of what you are just beginning to explore, and eventually you emerge back into the light of the next street lamp with just a little more clarity than you had before.
The physical journey is the psychological journey.
Exactly.
You walk through into what you are just beginning to explore. That reframes the darkness completely.
It's not something to be afraid of.
Yo, it's not an absence of light to be rushed through. It is the exact required environment where the most important emotional processing takes place.
Perfectly said.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the profound mechanics of something so universally accessible.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope this exploration gives you, the listener, a new functional perspective on your own evening routines. We strongly encourage you to take these insights and whatever unresolved thoughts are currently taking up your cognitive RAM out with you the very next time you step into the night air. Stay curious, take care, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.